The station was never truly quiet, but that morning felt different. The hum of the engines was steady, the lights were calm, and people walked quickly through the main corridor as if they had somewhere important to be. But then, a sight made everyone stop in their tracks. A woman was walking down the long silver hall. Her name was Dr. Anna Rodriguez, a human scientist who had been working on the station for several months. She was not tall, not famous, and not someone most officers usually noticed. But today, every eye turned to her, because behind her walked 7 creatures that should never have been there. They were cubs, but not ordinary cubs. Their furs shimmered like crystal under the bright lights. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, and their claws, even at this young age, looked sharp enough to steel. They were Zephyrian cubs, the most feared predator younglings in the galaxy. And yet, instead of attacking or running, they followed her calmly in a perfect line, like children trailing after teacher. Whispers broke out immediately. No one had ever seen such a thing. Zephyrian cubs were known to be untouchable. They lived in hidden dens with their mothers and would rip apart any stranger who dared to step too close. Soldiers had lost their lives trying to capture even one. But here, on the station, 7 of them walked openly, and they did not look dangerous at all. They looked loyal. The intercom buzzed overhead. Dr. Anna Rodriguez, report to Security Office 7 immediately. Anna stopped and sighed softly. She didn't look surprised. She turned to her left, and the cubs turned with her, moving as one. The lead cub, the one with a silver streak running down its head, made a chirping sound. Normally that sound meant a warning before an attack. But this chirp was softer, almost like a child asking if everything was all right. Everyone in the corridor froze where they stood. No one dared move, as though even the smallest step might break the strange spell holding the cubs in peace. Anna kept walking, her pace calm. The cubs followed, not too close, not too far, but in a perfect half-circle protection around her. Their glowing fur brushed the floor, leaving faint reflections in the polished tiles. Passers-by whispered in disbelief. Some reached for their weapons, but stopped, afraid to provoke the creatures. When she reached Security Office 7, the door slid open with a hiss. Inside sat Security Chief Vexa. He was a Corps officer, tall and broad, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. His compound eyes glared at the scene as Anna entered, with the cubs filing in behind her. They sat down around her feet as if this office belonged to them. Vexa's voice was deep and rough, carried through a translator into standard language. "Explain." Anna tilted her head, pretending not to understand. "Explain what exactly?" He pointed sharply at the cubs, who had begun to clean themselves right there on the floor. "This station protocol forbids alien juveniles in restricted areas, and yet these cubs have been following you everywhere for 3 days." Anna bent down and gently scratched behind the ear of the silver patch cub. To everyone's shock, the cub purred. It was a sound no one had ever heard from this species before, a sound that made guards grip their weapons in fear. "They are not following me," Anna said calmly. "They are choosing to come with me. There is a difference." At that moment, Commander Helen entered the office, tall and commanding in his blue uniform. He carried a datapad and spoke with a heavy voice. "I've been tracking them. Their behavior doesn't match any record we have. This has never happened before." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. They act on instinct. They cannot choose." But Anna only smiled. She looked down at the cubs curled around her feet, their eyes glowing softly like stars. "And yet," she said, "they did." The room fell into silence. No one could deny what they were seeing. Something impossible was happening. Something that might change everything they thought they knew. The news spread across the station faster than light. Everyone was talking about the human woman with the cubs. In the cafeteria, engineers whispered. In the docking bays, pilots argued. Even in the medical ward, doctors paused their work to share rumors. 7 Zephyrian cubs, the most dangerous young predators known in the galaxy, were walking calmly behind a human, as if she was a chosen leader. Some said it was a trick. Others believed the cubs were sick or weak. A few even claimed Anna had used secret technology to control them. But none of these guesses felt right. The station was filled with suspicion, and Security Chief Vexa did not like it. Inside the security office, the air was heavy. The cubs rested on the floor, their crystal-like fur glowing faintly in the dim lights. Anna sat calmly in the chair, her hands folded in her lap, as though she had been expecting this questioning for days. Vex's eyes narrowed. Do you understand the danger? These cubs are not pets. They are predators. Their claws alone could slice through armor, and yet you bring them into restricted areas. Anna did not flinch. She reached down and gently brushed her fingers against the silver-patched cub's head. The creature leaned into her touch, its glowing eyes half-closing with comfort. They are not attacking anyone, she said softly. If they wanted to harm you, they would have done so already. Vexa let out a deep growl. That is not the point. This has never happened before. Zephyrian cubs don't bond with anyone outside their family. Anna's voice stayed calm. Maybe it is time for your record to change. Commander Helen stepped closer, holding his datapad. He activated the hologram again, showing patterns and data about Zephyrian behavior. I have been tracking them carefully. Normally, cubs remain within 50 meters of their den. They never leave unless forced. But these 7 have been walking with Dr. Rodriguez from one end of the station to the other. They even follow her into noisy places and through crowds. Not once have they shown fear. The cubs stirred slightly, as though sensing they were the topic of the conversation. The Silver Patch leader made another soft trill, a sound the translator failed to capture. It was not a warning, not a threat. It sounded almost like approval. The guards in the room shifted uncomfortably. One of them whispered under his breath, "It's like they've adopted her." Anna smiled faintly. She looked at the guard. Not adopted. Chosen. The word hung in the air. Chosen. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Vexa slammed one of his 4 hands against the desk. Enough. This is too dangerous. These cubs must be placed in containment. We cannot risk the lives of the station crew. The cubs instantly tensed. Their crystal fur glowed brighter, and their claws extended in unison. A low, rumbling growl filled the office. Every guard raised their weapon, fear flashing across their faces. Anna lifted her hand gently. "Stop." Her voice was soft but firm. The cubs froze, then slowly relaxed, curling back around her feet like obedient children. The glow faded. The claws retracted. Everyone in the room was stunned. No one had ever seen Zephyrian cubs obey a single word from anyone outside their species. Commander Helen finally spoke, his tone heavy with disbelief. "Chief Vexa, you cannot ignore this. What we are witnessing is beyond precedent. These cubs are showing signs of intelligence, choice. We cannot treat them like wild animals anymore." Vexa's eyes burned with frustration. "And if they turn on us, who will answer for the blood spilled?" Anna met his gaze calmly. "If they wanted blood, you wouldn't still be standing." Silence fell again. The cubs purred softly, the sound strange and soothing at the same time. The officers exchanged nervous looks. Outside the office, the whispers grew louder. More crew gathered in the corridors, waiting for answers. The impossible sight had become the story of the day, and now everyone wanted to know the truth. Anna looked down at the cubs around her, their glowing eyes fixed on her as though she was their center. She whispered softly, almost to herself but loud enough for the others to hear. "They don't follow. They choose." The words carried weight, and though Vexa did not want to believe it, deep down he knew something had changed forever. Word of the cubs spread far beyond the station walls. Within hours, the news had reached nearby colonies, then whole sectors. Zephyrian cubs were supposed to be untouchable, untamable, impossible to control. And yet, a human scientist was walking through crowded halls with 7 of them at her feet like loyal guardians. By the next morning, groups of curious crew members had started gathering wherever Anna went. They pretended to check their datapads or sip coffee, but their real focus was always the same, the strange parade of cubs that followed her through the station. Some smiled in awe, others whispered in fear, but none could look away. Anna tried to ignore the attention. She carried on with her wake, studying samples, reviewing reports, speaking softly into her recorder. But the cubs never strayed. They walked behind her, beside her, even resting near her chair when she sat in the laboratory. One engineer, a young man with nervous hands, finally asked a question everyone wanted answered. "Dr. Rodriguez, how are they not attacking you?" Anna looked up from her datapad. Her calm eyes met his. "Because I don't force them," she said simply. "I don't treat them like pets or enemies. They are here because they choose to be." The silver patch cub, as if to confirm her words, trilled softly and leaned against her leg. The engineer stepped back, pale, his mouth falling open in shock. That same day, Commander Helen organized a private meeting in the observation deck. Only a few officers and scientists were invited, but the tension in the air was thick. The wide glass windows showed the endless stars beyond, but everyone's focus was on Anna and the cubs, sitting calmly around her like sentinels. Helen cleared his throat. "We have reached a crossroads. These cubs defy every record we hold. Our xenobiologists say this should not be possible, but it is happening. We must decide whether to study them or to remove them." The word remove made the cubs stare uneasily. Their glowing eyes narrowed, and a faint growl rippled among them. Anna placed her hand gently on the silver patch cub's head, and the sound faded. She spoke slowly, but her words carried strength. "They are not specimens for a lab. They are not prisoners to be locked away. They are children, making choices no one believed they could make." Vexa stood at the far side of the room, his arms crossed tightly. "And what happens when they grow? What happens when their instincts return? Will you stand there and protect them even when they tear through the station?" Anna did not flinch. "They will not tear through anything. They are learning. Watch them. They listen. They respond. They are more than instinct. They are choosing to trust." The cubs, as if on cue, shifted closer around her feet. The silver one chirped softly, then laid its head against her boot. The sound was gentle, almost affectionate. A murmur ran through the room. No one had ever seen a Zephyrian display affection for anyone outside its own species. Commander Helen exhaled heavily. Perhaps Dr. Rodriguez is right. Perhaps this is the beginning of something we do not yet understand. But whatever it is, we cannot hide it. The High Council will demand answers. Anna's eyes flickered with concern. She knew what the Council would say. To them, the cubs would be a threat. They would want them captured, studied, maybe even destroyed. The thought made her stomach tighten. The silver patch cub looked up at her, almost as if it sensed her worry. It made that soft, whistling trill again, the sound that always reminded her of laughter. Anna smiled faintly and whispered, "You chose me, and I'll choose you, no matter what they decide." The room grew silent. For a moment, even Vexa had no reply. Beyond the glass window, the stars shone brighter, as though the universe itself was watching this impossible bond grow. Something had begun that no one could stop. The Council's message arrived 3 days later. It came through official channels, sharp and cold, leaving no room for misunderstanding. The Zephyrian cubs were to be taken into custody immediately. They were to be transferred to a research facility where they would be studied for the safety of all species. The order shook the station. Officers whispered nervously in the halls. Scientists argued late into the night. Some believed the Council was right. The cubs were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Others feared what would happen if the bond between Anna and the cubs was broken by force. Anna herself read the order in silence. She stood in her quarters, the cubs curled around her feet, glowing faintly like living jewels. The silver patch cub looked up at her, its glowing eyes full of trust. She felt her chest tighten. "They don't understand," she whispered, stroking its head. "They see you as weapons, not children." When she entered the command chamber the next morning, the atmosphere was heavy. Commander Helen sat at the center, his face grave. Chief Vexa loomed at the side, his forearms folded. Around them, officers filled the seats, their voices low but tense. Helen spoke first. "The Council has given us no choice. They demand the cub be handed over." The cubs, who had followed Anna as always, shifted uneasily at the change in mood. Their glowing fur brightened, and their claws slid quietly against the floor. The silver patch cub let out a warning trill. The guards raised their weapons instantly, fear flashing in their eyes. "Lower your guns," Anna said sharply. Her voice was calm but firm. Slowly, the guards obeyed. She turned to Helen. "If you try to take them by force, blood will spill. You know this." Vexa stepped forward, his compound eyes glinting. "And what would you have us do? Defy the Council? Risk this entire station for your Bond. Anna met his stare without flinching. Not for me. For them. Look at them. They are learning. They are choosing. If you take them now, you destroy that choice forever. Helen rubbed his forehead, torn between duty and what he had seen with his own eyes. The council will not listen to words. Anna, they will demand proof. Something undeniable. The cubs pressed closer around Anna, sensing the tension. The silver one chirped again, this time louder, its glowing eyes locked on Helen as if it understood the conversation. Then, without warning, the station alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the chamber. The intercom crackled with panic. Warning. Zephyrian adult signature detected. Approaching from starboard side. The room froze. A Zephyrian adult. Full-grown. Twice the size of a tank. With claws that could slice ships apart. Shields up. Vexer backed. His voice thunderous. Officers rushed to their stations. The observation screens lit up, showing a massive figure moving through the stars, crystal fur glowing like a living storm, eyes blazing like suns. The cubs reacted instantly. They rose to their feet, their glowing fur shining brighter than ever. The Silver Patch leader gave a sharp cry, not of fear but of recognition. Anna's heart pounded. She knew what this meant. The mother had come. The chamber filled with shouts. Weapons ready. Prepare for impact. Get Rodriguez and the cubs out of here. But Anna did not move. She placed her hand on the silver cub's head. Stay calm, she whispered. The cubs obeyed, though their glowing bodies trembled with energy. Through the observation window, the giant creature drew closer, its enormous form blotting out the stars. The officers braced for destruction, but instead of attacking, the massive Zephyrian slowed. It hovered near the station, its eyes scanning the windows, its glowing fur pulsing like a heartbeat. The cubs cried out in unison, a sound that shook the walls. Everyone in the chamber froze. The mother was not attacking. She was answering her children. The mother's shadow covered the station like a dark storm. Officers froze at their posts, staring at the giant creature beyond the glass. Its glowing crystal fur shimmered against the black of space, each pulse of light sending shivers through the crew. For a long moment, no one dared to breathe. Inside the chamber, chaos fought against silence. Some officers shouted for weapons to fire, others begged to wait. Commander Helen stood stiff, his hand raised to hold the order. Chief Vex's eyes glared coldly, his arms tense as steel. This is it, he growled. The mother has come for her young. If she attacks, we are finished. But Anna stood calm. The cubs pressed close around her, their glowing eyes fixed on the window. The Silver Patch leader cried out again, a sound filled with longing, not fear. The mother answered, a deep and echoing call that made the station walls vibrate. They are speaking, Anna whispered. Her voice carried through the chamber. Do not fire. If you attack her, you doom us all. Vexer turned on her sharply. And if you are wrong, what then? Anna knelt, resting her hand on the silver cub's head. She met its eyes, then lifted her gaze to the enormous figure beyond the glass. Trust them, she said softly. They do not follow. They choose. And right now, they choose peace. The cubs moved together, standing in formation. Their glowing fur brightened until it filled the chamber with soft light. Then, in perfect unison, they cried out again, their voices sharp and clear. The sound traveled through the void, reaching the giant mother outside. The great Zephyrian paused. Instead of striking, it lowered its head toward the station. Its crystal eyes glowed with something that looked strangely like recognition. Slowly, carefully, it placed one massive claw against the outer hull, not to tear it open, but as if to touch the place where its children stood. The silver cub answered with a softer cry. Its glowing body pressed against the glass. The room was silent. The crew stayed, unable to believe what they were seeing. The most feared predator in the galaxy was not destroying them. It was showing affection. Helen spoke first, his voice quiet. This changes everything. Anna stood, her expression steady but her heart racing. You see now? They are more than instinct. They are family. They are capable of choice, of trust. And if they can trust me, maybe they can trust others too. Vex's arms tightened, his face hard. But even he could not deny what was in front of him. The cubs were not wild. The mother was not attacking. The impossible was real. The council's order still hung in the air, but now it felt meaningless. No weapon, no cage, could explain what they had just witnessed. For several long minutes, the mother remained there, her glowing body casting light across the station. The cubs stayed at the glass, calling softly to her, their eyes bright with love. Then, with a final, deep rumble, the great Zephyrian turned and drifted back into the stars. The cubs stayed behind. The crew erupted in whispers, disbelief, awe. Some wept quietly, unable to explain the emotion rising in their chests. For once, fear had given way to wonder. Anna stroked the silver cub gently. "You chose me," she whispered, "and I will stand with you, no matter who doubts." Commander Helen placed his hand against the desk, his voice heavy but certain. "The Council will not like this, but they cannot ignore it. Today, we saw proof that Zephyrians are more than beasts, and it began with these 7 cubs and the human they chose." Vexor did not speak. His compound eyes studied the cubs, then Anna. At last, his voice came out low and grudging. Perhaps they are not just predators after all." The silver cub chirped once more, a sound like laughter. The crew around them let out nervous but genuine smiles. The impossible had happened, and from that day on, the story of the cubs who chose a human was told across the stars.